Quite a few bits of good news this week, particularly for Mr. Trump and the attack against pharmaceutical giants and the prices of drugs. And he said for years drugs made in the same plant, generally in America, are cheaper to buy in other countries than America. And it's all courtesy of the drug-pushing lobbyists. Now, I was interested in the fact that he said an executive order will require that US government agencies purchase all essential medicines that we need from American sources. Now, some may look at this as a negative, possibly the CIA being involved in it again. But given the fact that several US government agencies have been involved in the more illicit drug dealing, this could well be a smart move to replace the funding loss of the illicit drug dealing, because that has been closing down. And then perhaps illicit drugs should be made illegal. Or legal, I should say. Old habit. They should be made legal. And people may ask why. Well, personally, I don't believe in the value of any of those drugs. But it's people's free will choice whether to take it or not. And the key is how to manage it and cut out the gangster world and the violence that surrounds it. And like I said, many may not like the idea of making drugs legal. Some maybe. But there are millions of jobs that depend on the drug trade currently. For instance, the Yakuza group. How do you steer them away from the illicit drug crime they're currently involved in without them using violence against the people or getting involved in some other form of criminality to keep the same money income? So what you would do then is you would put them in charge of an organised drug sale, where support for the user is then available, and give the quote-unquote gangsters a reasonable pay structure, and the profits then go into the health service. You can't just wipe out a whole industry, as bad as it is. You have to put something in its place. Maybe this is what Trump's doing, because it has been suggested on this show before. But either way, this is a positive move by Mr. Trump and his team. Now, for me personally, I want to see him go further and delete all pharmaceutical companies' indemnity clauses, like AstraZeneca with the potential COVID vaccine. Any pharma company operating under indemnity clauses should be banned from selling in this country. That way, we have less people in this country being used as guinea pigs for their obscene profit organisations. And another step that should be taken, given that hospitals were involved with taking money under false pretenses off the people with this COVID virus, health-related companies should have a limit set on their profits. The people's health is far more important than profits. And the fact that we value pieces of paper with numbers on them more than our own health, that has been sponsored by our governments, it's not just this one, actually shows how far society has fallen, does it not? More good news from Mr. Trump, and for me, this is pleasing to hear. This week he announced he was stopping the payroll tax for people who are making under $100,000 a year and also dropped the interest on student loans, plus $400 extra on unemployment. Now, the taxes has all the hallmarks of working with and listening to Kim the trustee and his music to my ears. You know, certain people were claiming that student loans were cancelled recently. Well, that's not the case, clearly. And but at least he's prevented the interest where these student loans that may start off at 40, 50,000 because of the interest end up somewhere in the region of 200,000. It's an absolute joke. Now, one of the issues that I brought up with him in the past is the lack of his own task force team to deal with the nest of vipers within the White House and other corridors of power. And given the just announced directives, perhaps now he has got that team and will, as suggested, govern from a concealed room. And maybe why he said in Ohio last week, "You may not be seeing me for a while." Time will tell. In a further sign of good news regarding Mr. Trump this week, this story raised eyebrows and also a smile. And perhaps we are finally seeing a split with certain connections of the Hebrew flavour. Time will tell, and we must always be cautious. But Mr. Trump was connected by phone last week with the Republican mega donor Sheldon Adelson. And perhaps he's the only person in the party who can cut a 9-figure check to aid his re-election. But apparently the phone call went unexpectedly turned rather contentious, and the 87-year-old casino mogul had reached out to Trump to talk about the coronavirus relief bill and also the economy. But Trump brought the conversation around to the campaign and confronted Adelson about why he wasn't doing more to bolster his re-election, according to the people with direct knowledge of the call. Now, one of the people said it was apparent that the president had no idea how much Adelson, who donated tens of millions of dollars to pro-Trump efforts over the years, had helped him. Or perhaps Trump doesn't need his money anymore. And when word of the call circulated afterwards, Republican Party officials grew alarmed that the president had antagonized one of his biggest benefactors at a precarious moment in his campaign. And they rushed to smooth things over with him, but the damage may have been done. Are we seeing signs of a split?